Hello, this is Professor Urbis White. Today we will look at inverse secant. Make sure that you watch the secant graph video before you watch this video. Okay, so let's get started. Remember what secant was. Secant is simply 1 over cosine. So we are going to start with the graph of cosine. Here's the graph of cosine, that u in there. And let's draw the graph of secant. And the secant is going to touch it this way. And it's going to actually go on like that. But the thing is, we need to limit our region to where it is 1 to 1. So we are going to limit our region from 0 to pi here. And we are going to try to attempt to draw the reflection of that red graph with respect to y equals x. So let's get started. Here's my red graph, secant, limited in that region. And it goes down this way. It goes up that way. And here is my y equals x. So what's going to happen is that point here, I'll do it in black, pi negative 1 is going to get reflected to negative 1 pi right here. And this point 0, 1 is going to get reflected to 1, 0 right here. And so when you do that, you're going to get a little graph like that. It's going to come and it's going to stop right here. And on the other side, it's going to start from 1, 0 and go all the way to infinity. So the secant inverse, that means I'm going to go from negative infinity to 1, negative infinity to negative 1 right here. And then I'm going to start 1 to infinity right here. So the degree that you're going to get out is going to be limited to 0 to pi right here. And then you cannot have pi over 2 because that's where it blows up. Alright. For calculator purposes, remember the secant inverse is not built into your calculator. You have to use the cosine inverse button in your calculator. So secant inverse of x is going to be cosine inverse of 1 over x. So kind of memorize that. So let's draw all these things together. So I have my secant graph in red and my secant inverse graph in blue. Okay? Very good. And I'm supposed to stay in 0 to pi area. So let's get one example done. Let's say I'm looking for secant inverse of 1. Now kind of go to your memory bank. What angle was giving me secant of 1? That angle was actually 0, remember? And is that angle is 0 to pi? Yes, it is. So secant inverse of 1 is simply 0 then. You're done. So let's go look at that. Let me do the other example because it's a little bit harder to figure out. Let's say I'm looking for secant inverse of 2 over rad 2. Well, remember how that works in the calculator. It is supposed to be cosine inverse of rad 2 over 2, the reciprocal. What cosine gives me rad 2 over 2? Remember what that was? It was cosine of 45 degrees, which is pi over 4. Does that make sense? And so that means this one is the same as this one, and that is simply pi over 4. But remember, I cannot take the secant inverse in my calculator, so I have to take cosine inverse of rad 2 over 2. So let's go in there, and I'll enter that. Cosine inverse of rad 2 over 2. And that's going to give you pi over 4. When you use your calculator, make sure that you are actually in the mode of radian. If you look at that third line on the left, make sure if you're using TI-84, you are going to be set in the radian mode.